Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news, and after arguably the worst weekend of the season so far for Ferrari, Mattia Binotto has still insisted that nothing needs to change internally. Are Ferrari just in denial? What do they need to do to their strategy team? Or can they somehow turn it around without changes in the second half of the season? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, we've got to talk about the continued drama that is the Fernando Alonso to Aston Martin situation. Firstly, his contract apparently is 3 years long. Quite something for Alonso. Gives another insight really as to why he might have wanted to go to Aston Martin, because look, Alpine were probably going to try and push him out. He effectively jumped before he was pushed here. They want to replace him by Piastri at some point or another. He said, look, I don't really like you guys anyway. I'm jumping ship now to a team that he sees potentially has more ambition anyway. Will that work out? Of course, remains to be seen. But he signed a 3-year contract with plenty of option clauses where if the team doesn't deliver a good car, he can just leave if he wants to, right? So it seems pretty good for Alonso. I'm sure the money's reasonable as well. So, there's many reasons why this move does make sense. And now it leaves Alpine in an honestly pretty tricky situation to navigate, especially because Alonso's been kind of playing them for fools in a way. He obviously doesn't really like that team. It's very clear by the actions that are being taken, because Otmar, the team principal, he said that he thought Alonso was on like a yacht in Greece. We'll see that in a second. But actually Alonso just put out a story of him like karting somewhere, so the communication there has not exactly been great. And apparently he told, I think we looked at when we talked about this story yesterday, that the rumour had it that Otmar had told the Alpine team on Saturday that Alonso was going to be leaving, but apparently the first they found out about it was the press release that Aston Martin did on social media. That's incredible. If Alonso signed this whole deal and was talking, apparently even on Sunday night, was talking to Alpine saying, yeah, I want to stay, like all this type of stuff, and then the very next day he announces he's going to Aston Martin, like, it's just incredible drama from Alonso, right? I mean, this guy is just box office, you can't doubt it. But yeah, clearly not much respect between both parties in this situation, and that's also the thing when Alonso's just shown himself karting for the weekends, and apparently Otmar thought he was in Greece on a boat somewhere. So yeah, definitely not the best relationship there between both parties. But of course that does leave the question on Alpine as to what they're planning to do. Honestly, it seems like this might have done Alpine a favour, right? On the surface, they kind of had a bit of a question mark. They've got their star driver Alonso, but they're kind of, young up-and-comer, their next star of the future, Piastri. They want to get him in a seat. What do we do with Alonso? Now he's decided to leave. Perfect, put Piastri in the seat. However, because they couldn't guarantee Piastri a seat next year, he's been asking questions around the Williams seat as well, which obviously he doesn't want to go to now, or potentially the McLaren seat. What is a more attractive option? Now, supposedly, Alpine say that Piastri is legally or contractually obliged to drive if they offer him a seat, but Mark Webber, Piastri's manager, is saying, well, we might actually have other arrangements here and we could potentially come to some sort of different agreement. So I would still imagine Piastri will drive in the Alpine, but it's far from guaranteed right now. Apparently the pre-contract agreement we looked at yesterday was with Williams, not with McLaren, so that probably doesn't mean much because he's going to choose the Alpine seat over Williams. It's whether he can get the McLaren seat and whether Piastri sees that as a more beneficial option to his future than Alpine. And maybe he's looking at what's happened here with Alonso and the drama that's been going on, and the fact that Alonso seemed to not really think that Alpine has that much ambition to be anything more than just a top 4 team. Like, and now Piastri, I mean, they're saying Alpine might even, take Piastri to court or whatever to force him to drive, which is never really a good look anyway. But they say that he's got to drive if we offer him a seat, as they are going to. And apparently Omar's reaching out to Mark Webber to try and get his perspective on it. So it's pretty mental, to be honest. This is what Tomo says, which I think is a reasonable kind of discussion of events. McLaren were lining up Piastri to replace Riccardo at 23. That seems kind of likely. Alpine were maybe happy to loan him out for the year, but now with Alonso leaving, that now says, okay, actually no, we want Piastri back at Alpine, which makes sense. But now there's a McLaren deal maybe in the works, or discussion is being had over there, right? And they've kind of said verbally maybe that, okay, yeah, let's do this Piastri deal, because not particularly happy with the way Riccardo is presently performing. And apparently many drivers have spoken to Alpine already about the seat, and Riccardo seemingly being one of those drivers. If that is actually the case, right, that Riccardo has reached out to Alpine to say, maybe we could have a discussion over that spare seat, I'm sure makes Riccardo think that his seat is far from safe next year anyway, and maybe a Piastri-Riccardo swap could be in the works. Not sure that's good for Alpine or what this contractual obligation even means in this instance, but yeah, more chaos, right? So Alonso obviously just left kind of out of nowhere and has now put the team in in a bit of a difficult situation with Piastri seemingly wanting the McLaren seat, and McLaren will probably take Piastri over Riccardo right now, and therefore Riccardo's already considering his options to potentially take the free Alpine seat. So it's absolute chaos, caused once again by Fernando Alonso. Okay, so as I was recording that video, I'm splicing this in afterwards. Esteban Ocon and Oscar Piastri have been confirmed by Alpine as the driver lineups. With all that drama, and potentially it might still continue, they are saying that yes, Piastri is their driver. So I guess they are convinced that yes, Piastri will stay, but albeit it's kind of a strange timing for the announcement, just because we're talking about that there is drama ongoing with the whole McLaren situation. But yes, Alpine have said that Piastri will be their man. So seems to me that probably that's almost certainly going to be the case, but maybe things will change, who knows, with this whole Riccardo McLaren situation. But again, they're saying that Piastri and Ocon, as we would expect to be their driver pairing, but still, there could be further twists and turns in this story. I suppose we'll have to wait and see. Now, what that does mean is that Piastri is not going to be loaned out to Williams, and therefore potentially Logan Sargent is a name from Formula 2 that is being lined up maybe to replace Nicholas Latifi in next season's Williams. He's actually going to do a practice drive at the US Grand Prix, so maybe that's an instance of, you know, them wanting to get Sargent in a seat. I'm pretty sure their team principal said that he reckons Sargent will be in an F1 car at some point or another, but not sure he's ready quite yet. But maybe that could be a good idea as well. Having an American driver on the grid as well is something that a lot of teams would be quite interested to have, because, well, the potential marketing possibilities that opens up. Let's talk Ferrari then, because wow, what a season that they've had so far, or what a season they should have had so far, and it hasn't really worked out for them. This is a remarkable statistic, actually. Yes, none of Hamilton's podiums have been wins, but he now has 6 podiums, 5 podiums on the bounce in the last 5 races, and then 1 podium for Hamilton back at Bahrain when it was a 1-2 for Ferrari. Pretty sure the last team to have a 1-2 at the first race of the season and then lose both championships was Ferrari back in like 2010 or something. I forget exactly what the year was, but yeah, no real surprises there. But Leclerc has only 5 podiums, 3 wins. Hamilton has 6 podiums, despite the card that Hamilton has had for the majority of the season is really quite something. And especially looking at the pace of the Ferrari this past weekends, it's honestly remarkable they managed to finish P4, P6, given what they were set up to do going into the weekends. Like, and even, of course, these guys in the cooldown room were like, they were on the hards. Like, why would they think that was a good idea? Obviously, from the driver's point of view, driving the race, it was like, we're struggling for grip at the best of times with these cold temperatures. Putting on these concrete tyres is not going to work. And that's maybe a criticism that's been leveled at Leclerc. Is like, well, look, you know, if the team tells you to pit with 30 laps to go, they're not going to put you on the softs. They're going to put you on the hards. And you've got to say, well, like, look, no, I want to go long here on these mediums and go onto the softs. These hards are not going to work. So there is that question raised as well. But of course, Leclerc shouldn't have to worry about those things. He should just have to listen to what they say and trust the strategy team to actually make a good call. Sainz clearly doesn't a lot of the time now. He's clapping back a lot, and maybe it's only a matter of time until Leclerc does a similar thing. But look at these numbers, right? Leclerc had the fastest stint on the first set of mediums, also on the second set of mediums, then was a second and a half off Hamilton's pace on the softs when he was on the hards, and then again had a slightly faster pace than everyone else on the final stint that he was on the soft as well. So Leclerc was definitely the fastest driver practically on every compound, apart from, of course, that hard tyre stint that completely ruined his race. It's very likely he would have won the race if not for that hard tyre disaster that Ferrari put themselves through. So look, it's happened again. We went into Hungary saying that Binotto had said the previous weekends that they could realistically win the next 10 races in a row. They come out of the weekend saying that actually no, our car just wasn't very good. Like, it didn't really work out. Doesn't matter what pit stops we did, we were going to lose the race anyway. It's like, surely they've got to look a little bit more seriously about the issues in this team. I was watching the race thinking, wow, this looks great for Ferrari. How are they going to mess it up this week? I was thinking of the options. Okay, could it be an engine failure? They've kind of overblown that one a bit so far. So then the strategy team decided to get involved and, well, blow up the team for them effectively in terms of the results. So Mattia Binotto has come out and given a statement on this, really, because he's been questioned, right? Look, what are you doing with your strategy department? Like, what is the problem here with this team? You've got to fix something, surely. But he doesn't agree. He says it's not a matter of bad luck and there is nothing to change as well. He says that, like, there were mistakes made. He says, okay, we've got to look into why we did that. But he says there's nothing to change within the team, within the dynamics. Like, why is it only Ferrari that does this out of the top dogs? Mercedes, even though their strategy hasn't been that good, Red Bull are flawless, and Mercedes are definitely way better than Ferrari, right? And they just deliver the goods and pick up the pieces, whereas Ferrari are the ones dropping the pieces on the floor, right? And as he says, it's always a matter of continuous learning and building experience, building skills. Sunday, there was definitely something you need to look at and understand why we did that. But if I look again at the balance of the first half of the season, there's no reason why we should change. I think we simply need to address what was wrong today. We need to understand and then to address and get back competitive at the 12 races so far before Hungary. And the reason why it could not be the the case of the next one. So he's like, apparently everything's absolutely fine. If I was him, I'd be absolutely fuming, right, about how this has happened. Of course, look, you want to trust and give some confidence in your team. You don't want to put down your team so much, but to come out and say nothing needs to change feels a little bit like denial. I don't know if you guys agree in the comment section below of the issues that they have had. Like I'm talking about, okay, Leclerc will be at a rest, he'll come back stronger, helping Ferrari push forward, but doesn't matter how much they push forward, like they're not catching Red Bull now, and they're in danger of losing second in the championship to Mercedes, kind of, which would be a remarkable story given the fact that they do have the fastest car and have done for a few races at this point, at least on the best of conditions. It almost reminds you of what he said earlier in the season, where I think they were leading the championships, and he was asked, okay, you know, are you going to win the championship? And Binotto was like, well, you know, our intention this season was just to compete for it, not necessarily to win it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fair enough, maybe. And look, at the end of the day, under Binotto's leadership, they have created what is a rather competitive car. That is the best car on the grid on its day. That is one achievement they do have this year. But of course, the strategic disaster plus the engine issues have really just destroyed their entire season and gifted the title to Max Verstappen and the Red Bull team, of course. And as he says, in 13 races, we only failed one race. In the others, we did not win for various reasons. And the funny thing is about this, right, out of the 13 races, is that I'm struggling to pinpoint exactly the one that he means, right? Because there's so many races where we're just an absolute disaster. And I'm like, which race is he singling out as the only failure that they had? Like, I'm thinking maybe, is it Baku, right, where they had the double failure? Like, I guess that was a failure, that race. But everything else, I suppose they've said, like, they were kind of close enough but failed for various reasons. Saying in 12 out of 13 races, they fought for victory, which might be true, but like, fighting for victory is not enough if you're making glaring strategical errors or like other errors entirely. Like, I mean, there's been like Silverstone, Monaco, and of course, most recently here in Hungary were many examples of where they could have made very much better decisions. And there's not even that many races so far in the season, right? And there's plenty of races still to go for them to make further mistakes. As Binotto says, the championships are mathematically still open. You can't say we're out of it. Like, okay, technically true, but let's be real here. Verstappen can DNF 3 times in a row, and Leclerc can win every race for the next 3 races, and still Leclerc is behind Verstappen in the championship, right? So it's over realistically. However, we must analyze what happened. If we can understand it, we can be competitive again. We've got to make sure it doesn't happen again. So he's admitting that something went wrong, but saying nothing needs to change seems to me to be a bit too far in terms of trying to defend his team. So that's the thing. What do you do if you're Ferrari? Like, what do the higher ups think about Binotto right now as well? Because yes, he's overseen the creation of a competitive car, but he's also overseeing and potentially in denial about the shortcomings that his team has elsewhere. Like, every weekends, they'll mess something up and be like, well, you know, it wasn't really too bad. Our car wasn't that competitive anyway. But the fact that they came 4th and 6th, the best car, starting 2nd, 3rd on the grid behind a Mercedes, and with Red Bull in 10th and 11th is just so inexcusable. They're going to need to listen to this interview a few times here with Hannah Schmitz from Red Bull, who's their head of strategy, who, you know, just seems to have a much better grasp of what's going on. I think if the Ferrari engineers or Ferrari strategists were trying to take notes on this one, they'd probably be a bit confused themselves. So yes, probably an overhaul is going to be needed at some point. It's been a discussion for years, and it's still a problem within Ferrari. Like, do they want to get serious as an organization, or do they not? Binotto is the man who has to answer those questions, and if he doesn't, then, you know, is it possible that his job is on the line? I think that's almost certainly going to be the case in a few weeks' time if these situations continue. Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.